Welcome to the See Me, Be Me podcast. I'm Nile Henry.
And I'm Blair Henry.
And we're two brothers who set out on a mission to make motorsport and STEM careers more diverse, affordable, and inclusive. We are the founders of the Blair Project.
This podcast series delves into the minds of inspirational individuals who come from ordinary and often humble backgrounds, but through their belief, dogged determination, and never give up attitude, have managed to overcome academic, social, or mental challenges to achieve their dream careers.
Our guests will share their life lessons that you too can apply to your own. We hope their stories will inspire you to go further, aim higher, and accept nothing less than you deserve. Your ambition, your purpose is all within, and we're here to help you unlock it. The planet of possibilities are endless.
You know who made it.
Welcome to the See Me, Be Me podcast, Tony. Just to start off with, can you just tell us a bit about yourself and just a bit of your background as well?
Yeah, no, certainly. I've been in Manchester for a long time now. I came here in the early 80s to come to university. I originally was brought up in London, and I went to school South London. I was quite fortunate in that when I was 11, I managed to pass my 11 plus, for those who can still remember back then. And I managed to get a place at an independent grammar school that I didn't have to pay, or my parents didn't have to pay any fees. So that was really good. And key thing for me, I was really into sport, which I really loved. My dad was from Ghana. He was wanted me to be either a doctor or an accountant. I think anyone who's got African heritage will know that kind of narrative. Did well at school, became the first mixed race head boy at Haberdasher's School in 1980. And then I decided to move north to the warmer climate to come to university. And I've never looked back. In terms of my career, I have three phases of my career. I've done about 26 years in sales, starting off from telesales through to sales manager at BT. And I've worked in virtually every sector that you can think of, probably except the nuclear area. And after a long period in that, I decided I had a bit of an entrepreneurial phase. So for about 7 years, I worked on my own, working with companies to help them develop their sales and marketing. And I found that really enjoyable. After a while, I did kind of miss being in part of a team. So I decided for my final phase that I wanted to kind of give back. So I've been working for the last 5 years in business support, working within the higher education sector, and more recently at the growth company to help small, medium enterprises to grow. And what does that mean? Effectively, that means that, they need to get access to funding, they need to develop their kind of mindset, and also to, I think probably the biggest thing I'm asked for is how do we do our marketing? And within that includes social media. And I feel I've got enough experience and connections to help those businesses.
Wow. And just going back to your childhood, Tony, on your journey, as you say, you've had experience working in sales and now where you are as a business coach. Who were some of your role models growing up?
Yeah, I think in those days there wasn't a lot of kind of like business role models. So key things for me, I think Muhammad Ali was massive in my youth. The way he could articulate his stories, have a bit of fun, but also kind of strive to be the best in his field. He was a big motivator for me. Quite ironically, I was quite a big fan of John Barnes, and who was playing for Watford at the time, because he was probably the only person that I could relate to who had a similar background to myself. My mother came from Dublin, so it was quite rare to meet anybody who was a bit like myself. So so it tended to be more of the sports stars. And the other person I had was Nelson Mandela, for his struggles that went on probably, and the way he went about delivering his uh, his narrative. Very, very important to me.
It's similar with me. Muhammad Ali is one of my idols. Just hearing his background and just inspiring people from diverse backgrounds. Because I remember reading one of his books. He had a quote in there that people from like black backgrounds, they never had like a superhero or idol to look up to. So he's also one of my personal idols, and I strive to be like him every day. Not in just my career, but just like how he could inspire the people around him. But on just following from there, Tony, just on your bio, you mentioned you work with Enterprising You, and how with Enterprising You they've supported over 3,000 self-employed businesses. What are some of the businesses that you've worked with during your career?
I suppose within Enterprising You, which is a program which is run by the Growth Company across Greater Manchester region, I joined it 9 months ago as a business coach. Found it really, really enjoyable. I've worked with businesses from hair and beauty, counsellors, housing association consultants. I've even got somebody who is working, who has set up an e-commerce business, looking to get the best out of the UK e-commerce and the digital support in the Manchester area, but also use and develop opportunities both here in the UK, but also across Africa. And I find that quite inspiring as well. So they've been really good. Probably the one I've enjoyed the most is working with a woman business leader who set up a community interest organisation that develops, that helps people with anxiety. And through singing and putting together choirs, that helps people to kind of overcome those anxieties. So I like those which have a real impact on the community. And that led to me attending Eurovision in Liverpool on a Thursday afternoon to see that individual lead a group of children who were from neurodiverse backgrounds, aged up to about 11, sing on the actual stage in front of probably an audience of about 500 people. And that was really inspiring.
Wow. I mean, just following on for that question, I was going to ask, what do you enjoy the most, I guess, out of it from being a coach?
Yeah, I think the key thing for me is to see that I love seeing people kind of develop. And one of the things that is a common factor when I talk with business leaders is that they lack confidence, and they typically, some of them have come from really good jobs that they've done before in whether it's a corporate role, but to actually run a business, I think there's a different mindset you need to be able to take that on, because apart from having to deal with about 12 to 20 different ways to grow your business, you're having to also deal with, have I got enough money? What about my family? What about, can I post on social media? I want it to be good, but I'm not really sure how to do it. And there's always that constant nagging going on. And I think what I try to instill in a lot of business leaders or entrepreneurs in particular is that just have a growth mindset, have a go at things. Some things will fail, and they will fail spectacularly. But it's being able to learn from that and kind of go, right, I've done that, won't do that again, and move on. And everybody has skill set. It's just getting it out of them, which is one of the things I enjoy.
I mean, a lot of the guests that we've spoke to in the past, like previous podcasts, they've always spoke about, I guess, when they worked, particularly like working with people, they always have that, I guess, that fear of failure. Like if you go into, let's say, an avenue that you're not familiar with, it's always like, oh, what if something goes wrong? How do you help people overcome that fear of failure?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I use, and one of the things I found that has been really helpful is to what I find works really well is peer groups. So getting business leaders to work in groups of maybe 4 to 7 business leaders together, because I think that supportive network as you say, everybody is thinking the same, and nobody wants to admit that they are not very good at maybe doing their accounts or selling in front of everybody else. But what I try and do is create a very kind of safe space. I think the underlying kind of research around psychological safety, led by Amy Edmondson, I think is from America, is really good at giving people that ability. Yes, I can relax in front of these people. I can ask questions. I can feel supportive. And what I try and engender in that there's no wrong answer. The only thing I work on with the people is, it's getting the right question out, and that takes a little bit of skill to get to bring those answers out, because ultimately the business owner is going to do what they want to do. So it's giving them that confidence and that ability to do it. And yeah, it's fine to make mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. And following on from conversations about like small and medium enterprises, what would you say are some of the key challenges for small and medium enterprises to grow and innovate?
Yeah, I think one of the two things that come out to me are access to funding or finance. Seems to be one. I think a lot of people go into running a business and think it's like having a hobby, whereby they kind of say, "Yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that." And what I find with a lot of people is trying to understand what's the value of their time on doing that. So, for example, I think when I worked in sales many years ago, I used to work on the basis of it costs me £200 a day. It's costing my company to train me, put me on a train to go to London, maybe to do a meeting. And so really I'm trying to get that value back. And a lot of entrepreneurs kind of start off and go, "Oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. It's not costing me anything," and get somebody to do a favor. And I think it's just trying to understand the value of your time. And otherwise you might as well go and get a job and get paid for your value of your time. And what I'd say, it's a bit like driving a car. Most people will take up to probably 6-8 months to learn how to drive a car. Everybody runs at a slightly different stage in how they're going to pass that test. And really there's a series of stages as an entrepreneur that will help, that you'll go through. And yes, you'll always get, I think it took me 3 attempts to pass my driving license.
Same with me.
Yeah. So I think all the best people learn through their failure to do that. It's and I think really it's giving that supportive environment for entrepreneurs to get back. And because I've been in and around Manchester for such a long time, I kind of got a good network around financiers, the legal profession, and also probably marketeers who are going to help those organisations. So I can signpost the businesses to those to those areas that are going to help them sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And then I guess, what is it? Because as a coach, you're essentially helping these entrepreneurs bring their dreams and their visions to life by development on the ladder. So what is it like to help them essentially bring their dreams and make it a reality, essentially?
I just get so much satisfaction. I mean, I won't name this particular individual, but when I engaged with them in March of this year, they're a nurse audiologist. So effectively, they take wax out of your ears. And now this individual, it's quite a mundane business, but I've been working with that individual, and he's now on YouTube. Wow. He's got a big following on TikTok. He actually gets paid for doing that. He's he's probably nearer to 50 than 30 in age, and he posts regularly. And literally, he has a video at the end of his studio, which he just films these what's going on, effectively looking at people's ears and saying, "This is what I'm doing." Wow. And he has over 5,000 people following him now. And it was lovely when I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Oh, it's been really helpful around the sales, how you kind of analyze the markets, and that's really helped me to kind of go on. And he's now looking to bring out. He's actually selling merchandise with his brand on, and he said 60% of his audience comes from America, and they're under 30, which even he was surprised about as well. So, and I get immense pleasure to see somebody like that grow and develop, you know, probably on social media, when initially it was like, oh, I'm not really sure if this is the right way to go. So that's one example. And I'm just buzzing from hearing that person's done really well.
So you helped him essentially unleash his potential to essentially get out there to get a big following in America, really. So
yeah, and also talking through, you know, I've got a good understanding around e-commerce. So he was talking about the idea, and I was saying, well, you know, could you use local suppliers in America to deliver your products? And there's platforms for that to happen. And he's followed up on it, and you know, he's actually started selling his products, and he's actually getting feedback through his YouTube presence, asking, you know, what would you like to see next? And it's just, you know, it's just so fulfilling to see that somebody fairly humble from the Great Manchester area is doing so well and so confident. And I get a lot of pleasure out of it, and I think it just helps. We generally talk about different ideas. Some of them were never going to happen. However, you know, we talked about, well, would he sell a product for like olive oil to relieve to dilute the earwax in the ears? Could he develop that and sell that to his client base? And he's actually looking at that now. So really, you know, really thorough view of once people kind of open up in those coaching conversations.
So following on from that, Tony, how important would you say having a mentor or coach is for developing the growth of an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think the research shows that if you have a mentor coach, you're more than 2/3 more likely to be successful in your endeavor. So, you know, with a lot of programs, a lot of coaching and mentoring being free now, you know, I encourage a lot of entrepreneurs to do that. This is from somebody who's come from a background, you know, I've got a master's in business administration at Alliance Manchester Business School. And some of the work they do around, you know, I did that 20 odd years ago. But some of the frameworks they're based on, it's based on the old traditional manufacturing model where, you know, it's kind of input in, measure the input out. So I'm a big believer in entrepreneurship is different. And, you know, you need to be agile, and you need to, you need to be, you know, you need to be risky in some respects, but also a key thing is learning. And that's what I love about the kind of people who've got that growth mindset or that ability to say, yeah, I'll give it a go, and I'll learn from it. You know, the biggest thing I find, you know, just to give an example, digital marketing, generally anybody over 40, 45 struggles with it. It's a little bit like, oh, you know, that's for the youngsters, don't really understand TikTok and Facebook. However, when you kind of break it down and just talk very easily with an audience, people kind of go, oh, right, it's not too complicated. Yes, I can do it. And even if I can't do it, there might be somebody who they know who can help them within their kind of supportive network, who will do it either relatively inexpensively. And I think it's really kind of pointing people to using that network to achieve what they're set out. Because being an entrepreneur is so different than working in a corporate organization.
Yeah. And have there been any, I guess, SMEs that you've worked with over the years that have almost been, let's say, resistant to change, where you might point them in one direction and they think, oh, well, I'm not too sure, or they might think it's not the right way for them? Has there been almost like should I say a conflict of interest, or maybe they thought that it might not be the right way for them? Has there been any experiences like that for you?
Yeah, I've only had a few of those, and what I found with those is that those individuals who struggled with making those the changes, they generally come from probably a culture where a lot was given to them. So it's like they worked in an organization which had a procurement function, which had a sales team, which had operations, and they may have worked in one of those organized in those areas, and they're not willing to kind of break into to understand, well, how does sales work? They might be very good at operations, but when you're an entrepreneur, one of the key skills is selling. And a lot of people talk about, what I find with a lot of SMEs, they talk about, oh, we need to get digital marketing right, social media. And I kind of say, yes, that is really important. However, what are you going to do when somebody actually contacts you, whether it's by email or through social media? What's your process around winning that sale? And that process continues to after the order. So what do you do in 2 months or so after they bought something from them? Do you send them an email? Would you ask for a testimonial? And a lot of people kind of go, oh, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
So it's some really simple things that entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs get it. And it's about really kind of understanding your client and your customer base really well. And I think that's a key thing for lots of SMEs to learn, is that, yes, today is fine, and you might lose a sale, but sometimes go back and ask, say, what was the reason I lost? And a lot of people don't want to do that. They're afraid of that conflict.
Yeah.
However, if you have good questioning ability, then that really helps. You get a lot more information back.
So it's almost the understanding of there's always something that you can pick up. There's always you're just basically learning on the journey, and there's just there's always just information that you can pick up every day as a part of your development.
Yeah. Definitely. So
and just going on from there, Tony. In terms of your own career, what does an average day look like for you? An average day in the life of Tony Ayin?
Yeah. So what I usually do is some preparation first thing in the morning, particularly in the business coaching world. I kind of read up on on my coachee that I'm looking to have a session with. I'll kind of work out what we said before in the notes. I'll look at what their plan that we agreed at the outset, and then I also try and I'll look on social media and what they're doing. Have they posted on any of the social media platforms?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, so I tend to use that quite a lot, or Facebook or Instagram. And then I try and get a picture of saying, right, have they made an effort? Have they booked onto any training programs? So that when I've got my meeting, I've done my preparation. And that's something that was kind of drilled into me in my sales career, is, preparing to fail, failing to prepare. So it's something that I find really useful. Then I have the conversations, and the key thing for me is asking those questions. What have you not done? To uncover what they've not done, because I think generally people are very good at telling you what they're good at, but probably less so about, I didn't do that session because I'm not very good on finance. So I have to then kind of break down, how difficult is adding up your turnover and taking away your costs. So we'll have a conversation around that as well. But I really try and prepare, and then find a way of, right, how are they doing? Because I think it's a bit of a fallacy, and a lot of coaches are earning a lot of money for it. But people really struggle with setting goals. It's not something that is done easily for a lot of people, whether that's through their education or the way that they're brought up. And I think sometimes it's easier in the sporting world. A lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm going to do a marathon. But it's very rare for somebody to go out and run a marathon tomorrow. They'll go and practice, they'll go and maybe do a 3K, 5K, and then build up. And so there's lots of, so the key thing is really breaking it down into stages. And I think that's something which is really important for SME businesses, particularly at the early stage.
Then along your journey, Tony, what would you say are 3 skills that you picked up that's helped to make you the success that you are today? If you had to give 3.
For 3. Key one for me is about relationship management. I think I just picked up the genes. I think my mother was quite a chatty person from Dublin, whereas my father was a bit more laid back. But when I was younger, I used to get thrown in to go to lots of weddings and christenings with my father, and literally you were put in with 20 other children. So it was just had to get on with it for the day, and then hopefully you get some sweets and go back. So I've always enjoyed that relationship side, and I think that's something that I'm conscious that I've developed. The other area is around I call it kind of giving people empathy and being able to understand people's situation. I think coming from a fairly poor background, and hopefully have done reasonably well in my career, I feel that I understand, I can relate to a lot of people. So that's something that is key. And the other thing as well is around problem solving. I'm quite,
Yes.
I really find that really an enjoyable subject, because there are so many problems out there, but it's really about how do we address those challenges, problems, opportunities, as they call it now in marketing. How do we do that? And I think they're the areas that I can really get, and I really enjoy doing well with businesses that I've worked with probably in the last 30 years, definitely.
Yeah. And for startup, like say startup SMEs, what let's just say that they don't know where to go or where to look or how to get started. What would you say are the habits that they would need to keep, the habits that they would need to develop in order to be successful?
Yeah, I think probably the key habits is, the main one for me is try and develop your growth mindset.
Yeah.
That lifelong learning, that ability that you can improve. You don't have to have got a degree and gone to university. You've got it within you, and it's just being able to bring the right supportive team around you to help you develop. To run a business, you need to understand about finance. You don't have to be a complete an expert, but you need to understand the numbers and what they mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really key thing. If I give an example, my son worked at the social chain in Manchester back in, I think he joined them in 2013. And at the time, I said the bank of mum and dad would support him for 9 to 12 months because he'd left a graduate job to do that. But he understood numbers, and it was quite insightful to see how the 2 founders developed that organisation, and where they lacked experience, they brought in a lot of financial experience to help with that side of the business. And I think that shows the importance of having either a coach mentor or to have probably an investor who understands what's going to be the next big thing in terms of business and the changes that were happening around e-commerce and social media. So that's a key thing for me.
And going back to you again, Tony, in terms of your own career, more of a personal question, this, but what would you say has been the proudest moment of your career so far? Proudest.
Oh, oh dear. Lots of good things. I think a key thing for me was, I would say probably on a personal side, I would say it was having grandchildren. That's maybe really important. I've got 2 grandchildren, even though I may not look old enough to have grandchildren. I do. So that was a key thing. In the business world, my preference is to probably step back. A good area for me, I think, was when I was 18. I became school captain of my school. I think Haberdashers Hatcham, as they're called nowadays.
Yeah.
It was an inner city London school funded by the Haberdashers Association, and that was probably one of my proudest moments of that at school. And I think it was the only time my father actually came to school to witness anything, because it was a little bit frowned upon to have kind of like mixed race parents at school. So that was really nice.
And in terms of, let's say, leaving a legacy behind, Tony, in terms of where you'd like to see yourself maybe in the next 10 to 15 years, how would you like people to remember you?
I like people to think this person was very instrumental in me making the changes that have helped them develop their career.
Yeah.
Very simply, I think I kind of say my mission is to make people better versions of themselves. And I'm a big fan of doing that. You know, if you're open to make those, to listen and make those changes, I think, you know, I get all my pleasure from doing that.
And I guess before we go on to the free bonus questions, the free fun bonus questions towards the end. If you could, let's say, if you had a time machine and you could go back in time and speak to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give to your younger version of yourself?
I think the advice I would give is don't expect things to happen like that. You know, if you're really going to make a change, things that you want to do, it might talk to other people. Don't be upset with failure. I think one of the things I found out when I did my master's was that I tended to have a tendency for perfectionism, and I think that came from my sporting background. And I think, you know, you don't have to be perfect in everything, as long as it's a real desire to make that change. Just throw everything you can at it. So that's something that I would do.
I always used to get told that when I was competing in motorsport races in karting. I always wanted to win and do the best that I could, but you know, my family always used to tell me that, you know, sometimes things will work out, sometimes it won't, but you just have to learn from your failure and come back stronger for next time. So even those lessons that I used to learn in sport, I'm just applying to it even in business. It's sometimes things will go right, sometimes they won't go right, but it's all about the learning that you pick up from the journey that matters at the end. So, no, it's just really, really inspiring to hear those stories, Tony. So, what we're going to do now, we're going to go on to our free fun bonus questions towards the end. Nile would normally be the one asking the questions, but I'm going to take over from Nile today. So, we're going to go to bonus question number 1, Tony. Would you ever have pineapple on a pizza?
I love pineapple on a pizza.
I think if Nile was here, he'd probably end the podcast now.
No, I think when I was younger, that was the luxurious pizza when I was a teenager. And if you had pineapple on it, it was like, wow, you're very exotic. And I do like pineapple, so I'm a fan. sorry, Niall.
Moving on to our next question. If you could throw a dinner party and you could invite 4 people, it could be people in your personal life or celebrities or either who have passed away or are still around now. If you could invite 4 people, who would those 4 people be?
Oh, wow. Good question. I would love to hear from a key person I'd love in the room, Nelson Mandela. I think would be fantastic to have around. Oprah, the favorite Oprah. I think her experiences would be really, really helpful in doing that. 4 people. I'd also like to have, I know this is a little bit of a wild card, but I would also like to have round the table a guy called Jason Leonard. He was a prop who played for England. I'm a big rugby fan, and I'd love to hear his stories, which were around about my kind of in my early years and of playing for England. Around that, I think he would be a really good person to have in the room. Fourth one, I'm struggling on a fourth one. I think I'd be really interested to hear from who would be now. Oh, that's good. Fourth person. It would have to be Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Love his story. Sad. I think if you go into conflict sports, you're probably going to have more likelihood to get injured. So I'd love to hear some of his stories of his early years as well. So I think that would make up my four, definitely. Blair.
And going on to our final bonus question. If you could pick any superpower to have, what superpower would you pick?
Yeah, I think for me, I'd love to be able to stop war. So if I had a power that I could kind of brush over any countries that are thinking of going to war, to stop war, and that would be my superpower. Yes, people can disagree over certain things, but you don't have to bomb people or shoot people. If we have to go back to the days where it was, even using fists, hands, that's still war. But I'd love to be able to stop that and stop the development of nuclear into trying to destroy different communities across the world. So that'd be my big thing.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a unique one. We've never had that before, because a lot of, I guess, would be like flying or teleporting or whatnot. But no, that's really nice. Yeah, just to end all conflict in the world, just makes the world a safer place, wouldn't it? So yeah, that's.
I think it's good that we can try and talk and resolve issues. My father used to say, even though from Ghana, he said his mother and father were from two different tribes who spoke like different dialects that you wouldn't understand. They wouldn't understand each other. And he said that there were about 13 different tribes in Ghana alone, and they're always fighting. But it would be really nice if you could get people to talk and come to and listen and try and come to a solution without having to resort to violence.
Yeah, just come into a form of understanding one another. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I just want to say a big thank you for coming on the See Me, Be Me podcast, Tony. Just as a final, just as a final note for our viewers, if people want to, let's say, follow your journey, let's say on a social media platform, where can they find you on? Which platforms are you on?
Yeah, the main platform, I think I alluded before, is on LinkedIn. I've been on there. It's Tony Ayin, Ayin, or if you're Ghanaian, it's Ayin is the pronunciation. I was one of the first 1,000 to join LinkedIn, because I used to get a certificate every year until Microsoft bought LinkedIn, I think around about 2014. Because it was recommended to me as a really good site for networking and also for recruitment. So that was in 2003. So I've tended to stay with them, and I quite like the fact that you can connect with business people and like-minded people. So that's the preferred platform.
And where can people get your services as well, Tony, if they wanted to get you in as, let's say, a business coach, going through Enterprising You in the Growth Company?
Yeah, the Enterprising You is going through a bit of a transition with the change from the European funding to being funded by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. So just get in touch, tony.ayin@growthco.uk. I think you've had Roosevelt Alexander on recently on one of the podcasts. So fairly similar email to him. So the Growth Company is quite well known within Manchester for business support. I think I'm on there on the website there as well. So hopefully that gives you a couple of contacts to get me. and I'm happy to share them with you, Blair.
That's
Thanks very
brilliant.
much for having me on the program, though. I really enjoyed it on the podcast. So thank you.
Really great to have you as a guest, Tony. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll put Tony's details in the link below. So thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. It's been great having Tony Ayin join us today, and just a few takes that I got from today's episode. So one of the key things that stood out for me is Tony highlighting the importance of relationship management and how important that is for him to essentially help the small and medium enterprises that he works with in terms of building it's against establishing almost like that trust element with the organizations that he works with, and how over like a long term you would just establish more and more trust throughout the years. And I guess they feel that more comfortable with going into certain avenues, and if Tony is essentially giving them guidance, they'll feel more I guess in a way more respect in terms of the advice that Tony's giving them. And also we made the point of empathy, because one of the things with being a business coach is understanding like psychology and what makes it, and then understanding what the people that are around you, what they're comfortable with, and understanding their strengths and weaknesses. So it's just almost that sort of understanding of what these different organizations or these different people in general, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and how Tony essentially can provide them on the right pathway so that they can fulfill their full potential. And then once again, just like a lot of other guests that we've had on the show, Tony also highlighted that in order to succeed at anything in life, essentially you have to not be scared of failure. And it's sometimes you might go into, let's say, an avenue that you're not particularly familiar with, but it's just that understanding that it doesn't matter if you don't really have any experience, or if it's something that's completely maybe foreign or alien to you, that it's something that you can go into. It's like there's been times in the Blair Project where we've gone into different avenues that we didn't have much experience on, but it's one of those things that in terms of your personal growth, you have to throw yourself in at the deep end, and you'll have to go through several steps of failure. There'll be many hurdles along the way. I mean, you have to fail and fail and fail, and then from the experience of that failure, it'll eventually lead to success. And it's really inspiring hearing how Tony's essentially establishing that mindset in the small and medium enterprises that he works with. And it's also inspiring people to, if they're not sure on certain facts and whatnot, it's inspiring them to have the confidence to also ask questions. And that was a really important message that I feel Tony was speaking to me about, is always ask questions when you feel that you're not quite certain from like certain facts or whatnot, to just go to, let's say, like an organization or even to your bosses or funders, ask questions, because you don't want to, obviously, you will go through failure, but if there's things that you don't understand, always don't be shy to ask for help and seek that guidance, whether it's from a mentor, whether it's from a business partner, because as I say, one of the mottos that we have at the Blair Project is no one can create success on their own. It takes a team to come together and bring that success to the front. So again, thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. As always, if you want to follow our activities at the Blair Project, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Get Me Motoring. And we are on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn at the Blair Project. And now just a final word from myself. Again, thank you for listening. And until next time, peace out.
If you've liked today's episode, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. The Blair Project is on all major social media platforms, including Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube at The Blair Project. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and and TikTok. Yes, we are on TikTok at Get Me Motoring. If you'd like to follow myself individually, I am on Instagram at Nile Henry and also LinkedIn at Nile Henry as well.
And if you want to follow myself, I'm on Instagram as Blair Henry _97 and also on LinkedIn as just Blair Henry.
So we look forward to having you on the next episode. So stay tuned. Take care.
Until next time.